And we're live. Welcome to HeroQuest fans. We are live on twitch.tv/HeroQuest fans, and we're back once again with Luca Paschi. I'll say it correctly this time. The spokesman, the leader, the public face, shall we say, of the Lost Quest Packs project, what we're calling the Lost Quest Packs. Is that what it's called for HeroQuest?
I suppose we can call it like that. I mean, it's sort of very Indiana Jones kind of name, so I'm cool with that.
Ah, yes. And the Quest Pack of Destiny, the Lost
Yes,
City of Quest Packs.
our top men are taking care of that, so
Top,
we'll see
top
what
man.
happens.
Yes. So I'll give just a quick recap introduction for people who maybe didn't see the first interview that we did or are unfamiliar with the project, maybe haven't seen the HeroQuest Italia Grog presentation that you did some time ago. So people who remember HeroQuest from the 80s and early 90s, we had started to get these quest packs that were focused on like a specific hero. So we had the Elf quest pack, Mage of the Mirror, and the Barbarian quest pack, Frozen Horror. And then HeroQuest just kind of stopped and kind of went away for 35 years until Avalon Hill came back with it. There's always this question that lingered in people's minds. Well, was there ever going to be a wizard quest pack or an dwarf quest pack? Well, turns out there was. There were plans, there were schemes, there were projects that were going on at Milton Bradley, aka Hasbro Gaming, back then in 1992. And this gentleman here is among those who kind of had this idea to kind of bring it back. And you made an amazing discovery online of some drafts from back in the day from Mike Gray and his team of creating these quest packs that were never finished or released. And you kind of went from there. So now that you're back, and thank you for joining us, of course, and thank you also to our friends here who are watching live, and maybe we'll have some time for some questions at the end because I know we have so many questions about these, and I know some of it you're trying to keep as a surprise, but I want to go more in depth today. I want to go more in depth and see what can we expect from your project and what were the kinds of things you discovered as you were looking at the process of these drafts, of these notes, of these quest packs that we never got. And you can start whenever you're ready, wherever you want to start.
Well, I'm born already, so we can start right off. And I don't know. I think we have few paths we can take. One for sure, I think might be interesting is to see a bit how these packs came to be, like seeing a bit
Yes.
what was the idea behind the packs, what were the instructions the designers got, and the ideas that were given to each designer to start work with. And I think that can be already fascinating as we can get a better grasp about what the process actually was, what were the ideas that the uh, designer team wanted to tackle, and what was the direction we think the American HeroQuest could have taken. And well, unfortunately, it didn't, or not completely at least. So I think that can be an interesting part. Otherwise, I'm open to questions, or if you had any particular doubts about our project, we can just talk about that, no problem.
Oh, yeah. I thought of something. So I think we went kind of in depth on this last time. A bit of a disclaimer. This is not a for profit project. This is not a scheme to sell something to the community because you don't actually have the rights to this stuff. You've created some original artwork, but the content itself is something that originally or maybe still belongs to Hasbro, right?
Yeah, we don't know exactly how it is, so we may have a right to publish it, we may not, probably not, I think. So one good way of handling it, I think, is not to challenge Hasbro on the profit side of things. So if they want to release it, they still can. They'll probably have to change it anyway. Our version is still our version, so it's based on the content of the drafts, but of course there were some fixes that had to be made, some mistakes that were not corrected, or some holes that had to be filled. So there is part of an original content in there too. But of course, I also think that for the importance the drafts have for the fans, it's important for everyone to be able to get this, to play with this, and not just hide behind some sort of physical paywall in this case,
Hmm.
to hide what's there, what has been there. The fact that no one ever could profit off of this is also a good way to keep things like this. So it's a project like anyone could have found some pieces of it in some yard sale, and they can just play it like that.
Lost buried treasure. I love it. Well, I don't want to bog it down with recapping everything we said before, but let me just say this. So, your goal here is at the end to have something that people can view digitally and print out and play or modify if they want to, right? This is,
Yes,
and it'll be free
of
for the
course,
community.
it will be free for the community. Anyone who wants to get it and print it can do so. Um, the idea, of course, is to release something that can be actually played, and we spent a lot of time working on this particular condition, as I think there are some people who may be interested in the drafts themselves and like the original form, sort of.
Me.
But also there are, I know, and not only you, but also not so many people around the world. So
Yes.
I think many will be interested in having a chance to actually play the pack and find something that it's sort of complete. Then again, as we've seen in the past 30 years, anyone will make his own version, they will modify the content, that's fine. We don't think our version has to be the only one or the best one. It will probably be, but at least we won't say it right away.
You'll try.
People will try. People will be able to judge themselves what they feel was the best version of the pack you can get. One thing about the content of the pack is also that we have seen some of the original bits coming out from now and then in Homebrew's version. So someone came up with some things that you can actually find in the pack as well. I think this is part also of the reason why Doug always says that we don't want to take things from Homebrews and people can't really apply with some dynamics, because we don't want to copy them. It's just a game that really works well with creating stuff. And so some people have come up with things that are pretty close, or just exactly as they were designed for the draft 30 years ago.
Excellent. I'm just letting people know that I basically blocked out the next 2 hours, and then we'll be playing some Hero Quest. So if we finish early or if we need the whole time, you're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, we can see.
Can I say this other thing? This is a question that constantly comes up: is this going to be classic style Hero Quest, or is this going to be remake style Hero Quest? I mean, we know the answer, but what would you say?
Yeah, we are designing it to be in line with the packs that were released, so 1990s edition. And so every bit of design is geared to mimic that look, that feel. Of course, as we know perfectly, there is really no limit in playing the old content with the new board, and actually many quests were just taken over to the new form. So it's probably just a matter of finding the right miniatures, and of course, anyone can use any kind of miniature they already have or buy them from somewhere, no problem about that. And the other thing could be printing the cards or the tiles in a different format, but it's not difficult right now. So I'm sure someone will take care about translating the version to the 2021 edition, even if it won't be us, probably.
Hmm. Excellent. Well, now that we've got all that out of the way, I think your basic stage has been set. So, where would you like to begin talking about these Lost Quest packs? Floor is yours.
Uh, I think an interesting part can be why they came up, let's say. Um, and the idea is that, of course, the US edition came after the European one, and it was modified somehow by the North American team and Mike Gray in particular. And they just wanted to have new content, as what we know is that HeroQuest was selling well. It was a successful game in the US as well. And so, of course, Hasbro wanted to capitalize on the opportunity to make more content. So in 1991, uh, they decided they wanted to create some new content for the game, and they were looking for people to design the packs. The interesting thing about the drafts is that they also give us an idea of how the design process worked back then. The timing the designers had to submit the pack, or the how physically creating the pack works. Like, we know the designers were called around summer of 1991. They had time until November to submit a full quest pack, meaning the 10 quests, meaning the cards, meaning the monsters, and it's not a very long time, I guess, but they all managed to do so. Another interesting thing is that probably from what we can see from the drafts, the Wizard Quest pack was the first one to get submitted and was the first one they started to work on. Then, for some reason, the Barbarian and the Elf sort of moved quicker and finally were released, while the Wizard Quest pack was left behind. But I think, it's very interesting to see how things worked, and sort of already a what if the Wizard Quest pack had sort of a quicker release. Maybe we would have the Wizard Quest pack and the Barbarian, not the Elf, or the other way around. We don't know that. Another thing is that we finally managed to find out who the designers for the packs were. We got to know a bit more about the people that were involved in the designing process. So we sort of know a bit more about the people at Hasbro that worked on the pack as well. So there are many things we can talk about. There are many things we can see. I think a good starting point could be the letters that Mike Gray sent to the designers. There is a general letter where he explained what he wanted them to do,
Let me
and
just
then there's,
let me just pause for a second there,
yep,
Lukaposki. Like me, it sounds like you're fighting a little bit of a cold, so I just want to be courteous to you.
absolutely.
If you need a break to like blow your nose or something, just let me know.
No, no, it should be fine.
Do we need visuals for any of this? Because I've seen these documents, but I'm not sure if you want to show them or are you just fine describing them?
I think both would work. I have them here so we can show them. The developers' letters are actually already out there. I'm sure there's a link somewhere, so people can just download them and read them if they want. This is a part of the drafts that has been public for at least, I think, a year or something like that. So
Yeah, I think I've seen them on Amalgamash's channel, and I've shown a few of them on mine as well.
yeah, I think so. I'm sure there's a link in a Reddit server, the HeroQuest server from Reddit that has the link to physically get them. I don't remember if it's somewhere else, but it's there for sure. So,
Oh.
uh,
Well, that leads me to a question here for you, Luka Posky. So were these people not all in the same office when they were working on these? Were they actually sending letters in the post to each other?
yeah, most likely they were sending probably sometimes the physical drafts. So they were just sending a bunch
Oh,
of,
fax
of
machine.
sheets all over the. No, I think also physically, like they were working on it and then sending that paper that they're working on to someone else, because we can see there are sometimes notes from different people, so it's not just facts probably, but it's also something else, something more. Then we for sure know they also were faxing stuff, as there is um, a letter saying, "Oh, you should me fax this because I can't read it well. The
Hmm.
copy is not clear, so just send another one over."
Well, how fortunate for us then, because for history-minded people wanting to preserve this kind of process, because if it had all just been email, for all we know, they wouldn't have printed it out and we would not be looking at it.
Yeah, probably. And even like this way, probably some of these parts that were sent back and forth just got lost in the way or
Hmm.
in someone basement or stuff like that. So it's very lucky that we managed to get something documenting the quest. So yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
continue.
the bad part about not having the file is that the designers are not able to like print and share those right away with us. But I guess you get what you get.
Hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Well, I just wanted to kind of highlight that little point. So fortuitously, we have this evidence now of what they were working on.
Yeah,
So you had
absolutely.
this letter, yeah, the beginning.
Yes. This is the letter that was sent to all the developers, and they were sent also some material about the game system and the European packs. For sure, they received the box of the game system, and they received some parts of the I think the Witch Lord and the Ogre Horde, like some parts of the quest books to show some of the things that were have been made in Europe. Uh, so this is why at the beginning Mike Gray says you by now you're all familiar with the rules and the components of HeroQuest, because they had a chance to see them and to work on these. We know that some of the designers were actually sort of fans of the game too, so they probably already knew a bit about the game. They were playing already. Some probably were not, and they just received the material as you could do with any kind of job, really. I think this is also another point. We feel like HeroQuest is very special to us, so we know everything and we think that everyone should know about it. But for some of the designers, it was probably just one job they received and they were just working on it and they may have forgotten about it just after the submission. So this is also fascinating. A bit weird to think about, but still. And they have the task to create new quest packs before the end of November. I think they had the timeline for the 11th of November 1991. The idea was to probably release all of them during 1992. We only got two of them, but still. this was probably the idea, and this would follow nicely the release of HeroQuest in the US. So they probably were thinking about releasing the packs back to back to keep the interest high in the game. And these are four quest packs, each around one of the heroes, and the name should contain the name of the hero to make it clear who that was designed for. Of course, it didn't really work like that in the end, or not completely, as it was decided then to have a generic name, so the Barbarian Quest Pack, the Elf Quest Pack, and then a specific name related to the adventure. We know that the names were chosen pretty early on, as if you go in the international copyright database, you can search for the trademark name of the packs, and you can find the four packs. They were registered at the same time, and so everything was set already to be released. Then these copyrights fell out of use, and just like the HeroQuest trade name that was taken up by other people and so on. But yeah, they had everything set at the beginning, and so this is also an interesting part of the process. Probably in the very early stages, a lot of the things were already fixed, decided for.
What were some of those names that we're talking about?
They apparently trademarked the four final names we have. So the Mage of the Mirror, the Frozen Horror, the Sinister Sorcerers, and the I think it's the Curse of the Hammer, not the Hammer of Adraka for the Dwarf Quest pack. This shows that the idea to change the plot for the Dwarf Quest pack was sort of a late decision after the early stages. Of course, from a company point of view, it just makes sense to trademark the name right away so that you're sure that no one can steal it, no one can use it without your permission. So
I have a question
this is
about
one.
those titles. So and I'm not trying to take it over here with my own impressions, but in some of the drafts I've seen, their other names have been written and then crossed out, like Barbarian Blades or the Quest for the Elven Kingdom. So those are ones that were not really
Those
pursued.
were usually the names the original designer was thinking of, and like in this case, we can see the designer for the Barbarian pack just took the suggestion for the name from Migraine and just used it.
Okay.
The others came up with different names from the beginning, but then I guess the editing process behind the packs thought that they wanted to sort of create a common theme or sort of a description that was more standardized for the four packs. So it's sort the something of or something like this. So the Mage of the Mirror, the Curse of the Hammer.
Hmm.
Uh, so
The horror of the frozen
that was,
horror. Well,
yeah, the Sinister Sorcerers. So they just decided probably to follow some rule about setting the name that they thought
hmm.
was more appropriate for the packs. So,
Before we
but
get
again,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Before we get further afield, I was curious, and maybe you're going to get into this, the organization. I suppose a lot of times we're reading between the lines about this, but Mike Gray is the leader. Do we know, was each quest pack just one person doing all the writing and then other people editing, or were multiple people doing it? How did they divide up the work? Were you able to figure
as
that
far
out?
as sort of, I think, as far as we know, there was an editing team at Hasbro that had Mike Gray and at least two other executives. You can find their names around. They sort of work on other games as well in that time frame. There is Gary and Donna. It's a man and a woman. Uh, and they were revising the content while the single packs were designed probably by just one person. So that person was in charge to do all of the work. And they officially did all of the work. Of course, we don't know if they were helped by someone else, but for the most part, they were designers with some great experience already. They had experience in designing fantasy games. Many had ties with TSR, as Mike Gray had. He got to know a lot of people back then, and of course, when he had to design something like HeroQuest, he thought, who has the experience to do this in the US? TSR is sort of the games workshop in the US, so someone that had such a background that knew how the adventure could work. That was something that was very precious for him to take back. The only outlier we can say is the designer for the elf pack. That is actually a woman, and we got to know who she was by piecing up the pieces in the drafts as well.
Hmm.
And she had no previous experience in making the quest packs. But her husband was an illustrator, and he also worked on some books for D&D about the monsters in D&D. So he had some designing experience. When he was first approached to write the pack, he said, "My wife can do that. I mean, she's the one who runs the games at home." And so that was how she got the job. But I mean, I think she did a great job. And we also managed to find her and to make an interview that we published on Elviller's website, as he had an interesting uh, line about interviews with game designers. So we felt like it was a good place to release an interview like that. She's a lovely lady, and sometimes we still write to each other. We just have Merry Christmas wishes and stuff like that. So
That's really cool.
yeah, yeah,
We saw the autograph. She autographed your copy of
yeah.
Mage of the Mirror Classic.
Of course, I mean, I had the opportunity, so I mailed her a quest book, and I said, I can't just, I have to ask you to autograph that.
Did I
And
hear?
another, not,
Sorry. I'm getting too excited here. I also hear that the fans actually purchased a copy of the new Mage of the Mirror
yeah,
to send her in sort of
yeah,
appreciation.
yeah, because she said she was a bit sad that she has not been recognized as a writer for the 2021 edition, as it's sort of always the case. It's rare for a designer to be accounted for the game he designs. At least in cases like this, it was even more so back in the 90s.
Hmm.
So she was a bit sad about that, and I said, of course, well, we feel like that where Hasbro didn't arrive, we can do that. So I sent her a copy of the new pack. She was very happy to receive it, and so I felt it was a nice gesture for someone that had such an important part in the game, and that was like lovely to deal with. So
Yeah, I
seems
feel like
like sort of the right thing to do.
fans today care a lot more about that stuff and the fact that we're online and can share that information and try to look people up. But I think back in the day, yeah, you knew the company that made the game and maybe one person who either invented the game or was like the chief writer. But I never remember hearing about Mike Gray at all. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'd ever even heard of Stephen Baker until the new Hero Quest. So I think it is nice that yeah they get credited. It makes me think of the artists from like the Middle Ages who made like cathedrals and stuff. They didn't put their name up on a big plaque, but we still want to know who were they?
Yeah,
what were they thinking back then? It's
we're
really
still fascinated by their work, and we don't even know their names, so that's
right.
sort of sad somehow.
Hmm.
But yeah, they didn't really used to put credits for the games, or was very very rare. Maybe it was easier for the video games to have them. You know, when you finish the video game, the credits just start rolling. But for board games, it was not as common as it is.
That's a good point
I've been
for board
Yeah,
games
I've been
because
for board games.
for RPGs, I think it's maybe a little different because I know like Warhammer, well, that's a war game, but you have like
Yeah,
three big names, Priestley, Ansel, and sorry, I'm forgetting the third
yeah,
person, but yeah, but for a board game, it's like Monopoly. Well, who designed the pieces? I don't know. You know,
yeah.
who wrote the cards? I don't know.
And I've been told by someone that with knowledge in the matter that that was also sort of a strategy, as knowing the name of the designer would give him more contract power for subsequent releases. So if we don't put your name, no one knows it's you, and it's easier to just negotiate on further expansions because you're not famous, sort of. So
Ah,
it was also sort of a strategy from the company. But I mean, I guess we're lucky to know, like for the 2021 edition, a lot about
hmm.
who made the illustrations or who worked on some parts of it. But we just should not take it for granted.
All right. Okay. Well, I hope I didn't take you too far off track with those questions, but
No, no, it's cool.
I'm telling people to post their questions in the chat. We can get to them at the end when we're done. But yeah, continue on. I'm fascinated by this whole process. Uh,
Yeah. Mike is setting the ground rules. So he tells us each pack will contain at least one female figure of each hero, so that the female players don't have to play a male hero. I think this is interesting as it's very common now, but it was not very common back then. A lot of games just had male heroes, and I think HeroQuest in this and having a designer of a pack that was a woman was very, very modern, and it probably wanted also to introduce girls to this kind of board game. So I think this is also a very important thing for many of us. HeroQuest was sort of a gateway drug to get to more difficult stuff, and so they thought about making it as open as possible. Not something that you would see so easily in in the beginning of the 90s. So this is also interesting. He also says what the pack should contain. It's something that we know very well right now, as it's the standard for these American packs. So the runners of plastic figures, quest book, the cardboard sheet, deck of cards, and the cross-sell flyer. We only got part of the cross-sell flyer. I think this letter, Mike says, it would be a good idea to have a flyer that has sort of a demo adventure in the back, so that you find that you can also play the adventure that is in the flyer, showing a bit how things could be, what you can find in this quest pack. So that is also some nice idea from a marketing standpoint. I have to say, Mike has a lot of great ideas. He shows that he knows the game very well. He knows everything very well. He was very experienced back in the day, so he was a very good leader for the team, of course. Here he says the plastic runners, we how they are made. and he says one runner is gonna be new miniatures, one runner is gonna be one of the four containing the quest packs that were to be released in the UK. We can see what happened there. Like we got the Men at Arms in the Barbarian quest pack. We got the Warrior Ogres in the Elf quest pack. We should have gotten the Wizards in the Wizard quest pack, and that makes absolutely sense. And we would have gotten the other three Ogres in the Dwarf quest pack. The idea was to make them sort of magic users as well. Uh, Mike liked the idea to have three different characters in that pack that you can play with. Like you can sort of make everyone a special monster. So here he says something that we were saying last time. You have to put the monsters in the pack. They have to be the same size of the figure in the basic game. Uh, you can do what you want, but then you won't have a lot of space if you put some big monsters. You don't have to draw the figure, but you have to submit the description. You cannot use any of the trademarked or copyrighted figures in any of the other major role-playing systems. So you can use generic monsters. You can just use specific monsters from a game. So generic mythological figures is fine. You can use a Minotaur, but it can't be a specific monster or from some sort of franchise because that cannot be done. Then there are some ideas on how you should put the names, like the how you should put the monster on the quest maps. They didn't have icons yet, so they had to use some letters, but they had to be sure not to mix them up. We have an icon for everything except the warlock. We know that right now. And they were given some examples to follow, so they knew about what the design should have been, how they could make it. They had the blank maps, just as we players had, so they sort of had to go through the same thing that we had to go through. This is an interesting part, I think, as well. This is a very interesting part, is that the monsters are the first milestone that they had to achieve, as the design of the plastic part, the artist that had to physically make the figures, it was the part that would take a lot of time. So they had to be the first thing to be made, or they wouldn't be ready in time if it took a long time. So they were the first part that had to be submitted. Then some things you could send them later, but those had to get there first. Of course, we will design something similar if there is a monster you like, but maybe there's an illustration or is copyrighted. We can do something close enough at least. Okay, this is the cross flyer. It was something that they wanted to create a teaser to show what you could make if you had the 4 packs. This is also a nice thing. We never really got it in the end. We just got flyer for the first 2 expansions. It would have probably been something similar with a different pack, or we had the adventure continuous flyer. Maybe it would have been that. We don't know. It never came to fruition, so we don't
Oh
know
yeah,
what could have been there.
the one that we showed in the last video. You guys created
Yeah,
that to show what it might have looked like. Very
yeah,
nice.
yeah, sort of. We don't have the adventure in the back, but still, it's difficult to do that. Um, then of course we have the tokens. Is just describes a bit how it works, and I think no, he doesn't say it here, I think, but he says that he knows that the process of cutting the cardboard tile is not very precise. So he tells
I
them
love that.
to be careful about that, because he says we know that the die cutting is not very precise, so be careful. And I think we have seen that with our boxes. Sometimes the die cut is really off. So at least they also knew that. They also knew it was a problem. In this case, of course, it says that you can create new stuff, and if you need plastic stands, you can place them, but just not too many. We already saw the plastic stands in the Wizards of Morcar, so we could have gotten something more like that in the packs. We don't know what could have been. Um, he starts to give some ideas about the things you could do, like a room that is an illusion. Then when you open the door, you just flip it over, and it's a different design. He sort of throws some things here and there for the designer to get inspired by to create something different. So this is also, I think, very interesting and shows how much Mike was attuned to the game itself.
It
So
shows
the
how.
ideas that he wanted to develop in that, I think it's very interesting insight on what was the process back then. Um, hit point schools. You can get something from the previous packs if you liked it. We know some things were reused. Of course, this was a very important part, as all the things that get reused don't have to be created, and so it means that the company saves money if you reuse the same assets, not just for the plastic figures that are very expensive to make, but of course if you don't have to hire an artist to make something, if you can just use something that you already own, it's just all the better. This is why we saw a lot of bits from the different expansions coming up in the Barbarian and the ElfQuest pack, and this is why probably we would have seen the same thing in the Wizard Quest pack and the Dwarf Quest pack. The card deck, 30 cards to design. There's an illustration in the back. There is a small drawing in the front, just like the basic game. They can do whatever you want. They can have monsters cards. They also were given a copy of the cards from like the Wizards of Morcar, so they knew about the spells that they created there. They had a lot of insights about the content of the other packs. In some cases, it was sort of an inspiration. You can take something. Sometimes they just did a straight copy. It really depended on the designer himself. So um, you don't need a car for the female character, as she's the player, it's not a monster. You can give her special stat in the quest notes if you want to use her as a baddie. Um, the wizard will be full of new spells, good spells, and also not so good spells. But he says other packs may also have no spells at all. So it depends also on what the designer felt like he wanted to do. This is interesting, as there were also some different stances on this. Um, some designers included spells, but some of the editors felt like that hero, it's not a magical one, so maybe you shouldn't have them. Let's scrap them all together. And I'm looking at you, Dwarf. This is the case. where there were spells designed at first, but they were not sure they would keep them. And it kind of makes sense. You can use the cards for something that is more dwarvish compared to just spells that are very connected to the wizard or the elf. We saw a lot of spells coming out of there, but it was not necessary. In the Barbarian Quest pack, we had different cards doing different things, as an example. Um,
Let me just interrupt for a second there, Luca.
sure.
So I was starting to, take over the interview again and start asking you about cutting room floor, things that were left out that you like, but we can save that for later. Hispazargon's comment was, it would be cool to talk about the design limitations. I think you've started to say that already, that Mike is setting this out, and it reminds me of conversations we had with Chris Nato about Modern Hero Quest, where they have a certain budget when they're making these boxes and a certain amount of space, and so they have to decide how many cards, how many tiles, how many pieces. Could you say something about that process that we're finding out here?
We don't know the details, but of course, the idea was probably to create the best pack as possible by spending as little as possible. So reusing some assets, not going overboard with the things that are very expensive, and probably in this case also the idea that the four packs had to have the same content, so you could really do very different things in one or the other. So the designers were given quite a lot of freedom in how they handled uh, their content, but still they had to remain in a more standardized creation process, of course. But I don't think here, probably in one of the personal letters to the designers, Mike says for the spells, you can use the same classes that were in the base game, or you can just create something completely new. No problem about that. So it means that while they had some limitations that probably were related also to production, they were quite free to decide what they wanted to do. So what sort of monsters, big ones, small ones, what should we make, what should we put in the pack. Some sort of did something very linear, very easy. Some had some pretty wild ideas about what can be done, and it's very different from what we are used to think about when we think about HeroQuest. Like in the Dwarf Quest pack, the designer wanted to have sort of an outside board where you would play with a very different style compared to what we are used to, the usual map with the dungeon. So he came up with something that was entirely different. You would move with just a small token in the various spaces, and it was something that was cards that you could go in between the quests, and so they had quite a lot of freedom to create something that was more in line with what they wanted, what they thought could be cool to add in the game. I don't know if it answers your question, but
Yeah, I since I was allowed to see some of that stuff, and I asked, of course, if it was okay if I shared it. But in my games, I used the shady open market seller who would sell you potions at half price, but they had a 50% chance of failing. That was neat. That whole outdoor thing with the dwarf pack, I've seen it, so I know what you're talking about. I think when some people hear that, they think, well, we've had outdoor areas before, but this is talking about, like you say, a totally different way of moving around the map and maybe going from one adventure to the next versus just being outside, like an outdoor tile, like in the Ogre Horde. So,
yeah, yeah.
are you
Yeah,
gonna?
it's not just an addition, but it's sort of different game altogether.
Yeah,
So
different mechanic. I'm wondering though, is your team, your group, your plan to impose the same limitations that you think the original group had with these public releases?
The idea is to sort of play the game of be a designer from the 90s. So the limitations they had, we sort of want to try to have them as well, uh, just to try to make it as close as possible to what could have been. This means that maybe we are adding one thing here, one thing there, but it's not something that it's not possible. Like we're not adding a second cardboard sheet. We're just working with one that has that dimension. Then we can try to pack it full of tiles, or we can just sort of make less of them. But we want to work with the same limitations, same number of monsters, same number of cards. Of course, we could make it different, but we feel like it's not true to what the idea of making sort of a restoration is. We don't have the same limits now. We can make it very different, but we feel like it would be sort of betraying the packs as well. So we're trying to move within the same limits they had.
Yeah, because people that download this can make all the changes they want anyway, just like they can with any official release. Um,
Yeah, if they want to add cards or monsters or whatever else, they can do that. It's no problem. But I think that's the spirit of HeroQuest. So you're being told to change whatever you want, do whatever you want since the base game. So
yeah, yeah, I agree with Hispa Zargon's comment there. The most value of this work is making it as close as possible to the 90s packs. Yeah, because it would be so easy, I think, to just step in and I mean, we praise Doug Hopkins all the time for his working with the fans, but we could take the things from the new Quest packs and just throw it in to say, oh, there's our solution right there. In 2024, they have this rule mechanic, but instead, you're trying to reach back into the text to find out what were they most likely going to do of the options that they had, which one works the best, and try to present that again so it feels like something that was made in the 90s, right?
yeah, we're trying to stay as true as possible. This means that also if we have to fill a gap, if we have an idea of the road they might have taken, we're trying to go that way. And it will be especially true for the Dwarf Quest pack. It is not as complete as the other packs are. There will be a lot of guesswork to be made, but we are trying to. I think the idea is to start from the suggestions that Mike gave to the designer, and so trying to sort of reshape it based on what to go with, or trying to see it as a piece of a whole. So if we know that the other packs had sort of a pattern to them, like with the number of spells or the type of spells, we're just going to try and make that pack fit into the biggest picture. Sort of like if you know that the new spells, there's always 20% healing spells, 20% offensive spells, and 60% something different. We're just gonna do the same thing so that it stays true to the whole picture of the 90s packs, of the 90s HeroQuest.
Something else I wanted to ask you. I have this pet theory, and I suppose it's not completely unwarranted, is that from a profit-seeking standpoint, they probably wanted kids back then to buy all four of these hero expansions and put them together so that you had like the ultimate dwarf, the ultimate barbarian, the ultimate wizard, the ultimate elf, all the special potions for each hero. But one of the questions, and maybe we can get to it later, is there a connection besides that profit motive between the four packs, like story wise, or maybe something like that?
Mm, apparently, not really. Like, of course, the editors try to sort of make give the same imprint to all of the packs, but there isn't really any specific connection you can make out. So that they have a similar structure. The idea was like for the solo quest packs to be maybe sort of a way trial that a new hero has to take to become sort of a champion that can go in the group quest, but there seems to not be really a connection between the stories of the different packs or something like that. But of course, the idea was that they had to have it. You can see it in the letter right here. Anyone who plays Zergon a lot will have to have all four packs to have a complete array of fun things to create for his quest. Or anyone who normally plays the dwarf to have the neat stuff in the dwarf pack. So the idea was to make something that was interesting, not just for the heroes, but also for these Argons out there to make new quests, to make new content for themselves. And I think, I mean, we're always happy when we see a new expansion box because there's a lot of things that we can use. So that's what makes us happy.
Excellent. Yeah, the whole gotta have it mentality, I definitely can understand that. And I can imagine being a kid back then, let's say I got the Mage of the Mirror and I've got these ogres, but then I find out the dwarf pack has even more ogres. And I think, well, I can't just stop with one. I've got to get the rest, right? So you
Yeah.
ask Santa Claus or Father Christmas for your parents for it. You save up your allowance to try to get it.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think it's real. You know, when you're into the game and you start really walking with your lab to design your own quest, you have a ton of ideas. Sometimes it's a bit frustrating to have to make them a reality, but I know cutting a normal sheet of paper, you would really want to have that cool miniature, or you would really want to have that tile that has a nice drawing. So having more stuff is just amazing, especially when you're a kid, but also when you're a grown up. It's something that I think really fits in the style, especially since it's such an open-ended game like HeroQuest is. You can create whatever you want. To have more of this, it's absolutely good. So much that some people right now are talking sometimes about why Hasbro doesn't make monster packs just to get new content, you know. So it's sort of the same thing. In this case, it was more organized, but still, the idea was to give more to the players to play with.
I thought of something. I guess as the interviewer, I have the privilege of just busting in with a question. I feel like the Games Workshop way of doing things is a little bit different. With their games, you can always see they say, well, here's some stats for a new character, and if you want a nice miniature to go with it, the Citadel Miniatures catalog has this finely crafted troll
We
that you can buy.
we know where you can find it. So
Yeah, yeah. Whereas they are creating these new miniatures in-house, so they're reusing the Games Workshop miniatures they already have from the European packs. And now for these new hero packs, they're just creating their own. Does that tell you anything about maybe the relationship between Games Workshop and Milton Bradley at the time? Did they run out of money? Were they moving on to something else? I wonder.
I think probably production was just moved to the US, and
Oh,
probably
I see.
the US team felt they could make it on their own without needing too much help from the UK. And they probably thought that finding some artists for the miniatures would just have been easy to do in the US. We don't know who sculpted the miniatures of the packs, the original ones. You can clearly still see the style is different from the Games Workshop ones. Um, it was probably a matter of making things easier. Of course, Hasbro has a lot of contacts in the industry, artists, designers, whatever else. So they probably just felt it was easier to look back at the US since the production was there. was just easier, probably slightly cheaper to go that way. But considering that they still use the same assets, so the man at arms that are clearly Games Workshop stuff, it means that they still had a deal in place. There is a Games Workshop name on the back of the Barbarian, the Elf pack, so it means at least they were okay doing that.
Yeah,
Then maybe for some other reason they decided to go another way, but I don't think it means that the relationship was stranded or something like that.
yeah,
Because I think in that case it would have just been easier to create new miniatures for the man at arms and just, yeah, whatever, we don't need you, or we can just do it on our own. We don't owe you anything, so let's just go with something new. So
we have a question from Bohemius there about the sculptor from the D&D board game from Parker Brothers. I'm not sure if he means Dragon Strike or the D&D adventure game. Have you considered that theory?
maybe we know for sure that there was some sort of connection, as the designer for the Quest pack said that some of the content he worked on was used for a D&D expansion by Parker Brothers. I'm
Okay.
not sure it's actually like that, but probably there was some sort of connection between the teams, the games, but we don't know for sure. But it's probably, I mean, it can be because, of course, I guess if they are doing good work with one designer, they will just call him back to work on something more. We have a few names flying around, but we don't know if they were artists, if they were executives at Hasbro, or they were in charge of the art department. We have a couple names. We haven't been able to find more about who these people are. Some are artists, so they seem to be artists, so they may have sculpted them, but we're not entirely sure. We don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out in the future.
We may have to have a third interview. I'm just thinking we've got
Maybe, yeah.
we've got our second hour here. Let's maybe go ahead. People, go ahead, type your questions in the chat. If it's not relevant though to the immediate subject, we may have to pick it up in a future discussion. But go ahead, please share those questions. And Luca, I want you to forge ahead certainly with the time we have. And thank you again.
Yeah, sure, problem. And I mean, I'm just going forward. Then, if comes up, we can just stop again. Of course, some direction about the quest book should be 28 pages. You don't have to put cutouts in the back cover, just like it has been done for the US releases of Keller's Keep and the Witch Lord, because the cards will be inside the quest pack. I think everyone hates the cutout at the back of the expansions, but still. Then he says not to get too creative on the format of the quest book. So you need to have 10 maps, you have to put some explanation, and you can really do something strange, something weird. I think it's here, maybe not. No, maybe not. Probably it's in the dwarf part. Part of the reason why the outdoor idea was prepped is that it was not easy to fit in the quest book. So they had to make something completely different. The risk was for the map to be too small to be usable. So they were
Fold out
start
picture.
to, yeah, they had to think about how to put it in there, because of course the layout for the quest book was a bit more difficult to deal with. You didn't have much space. A nice map of the quest fits well, but if it has to be something different, it's not easy to put everything in there. So this is part of the reason why probably we wouldn't have seen the outdoor part, even if it was appreciated as something that was different from the usual packs that were designed at that point. Then the structure of the packs, quest 1, 2, 3, it's a solo adventure. We can see from here that it was Mike's idea to create these packs as they were designed. So with the free solo quest, the group quest, and the final double quest. This is also an interesting thing, shows how much Mike was influential in the choices that have been made in the packs. It's interesting here, as it says that the idea was to make sure that kid who had a parent child, or two kids can play together without someone having to play four heroes at one time. Sometimes it's difficult to do that. Sometimes it's nice just to have a game with one person, so we don't have to find a whole family to play or a bunch of guys to play. We can just play us two. The adventures can be used to introduce a new player to the game, so someone that has never played HeroQuest, we can do the solo quest so he can start to get on the dynamics, how it works. This is also interesting. And third, we can introduce new characters. If someone is killed, we can make a new hero. He can get some equipment before the group quest. I think an interesting part is that in the end it didn't really work like that. So I think if a parent and the kid had to play the solo quest and the barbarian quest pack, they would have probably killed each other or something like that. It was a screaming match between the two. I think it's a bit sad that it didn't work out, because it was a nice idea to make it like more of a let's get to the rules of the game. Let's see how it works, and then we can have the difficult part. Like this is not very helpful for new players. The risk is to just make it too frustrating for them, so they never play again. So
I
that,
wonder,
that, that
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, Luca. I wonder if they ever looked at the Dave Morris solo quests. I'm trying to think when those came out. I guess maybe they couldn't have because it was the second and third novel. You had like 92, 93, because his solo quests were actually pretty easy. Like maybe you're playing by yourself as the wizard, but then you find a barbarian mercenary who helps you out, or you're a barbarian and you find a wizard who's getting beat up by some monsters, and he has most of his magic is used up, but he has some, and he can join you. Maybe if they'd been able to go that route, or maybe I wonder if Dave Morris was reacting to knowledge that he had that these solo quests were too hard. I suppose that's pure speculation.
Probably yes, as we know there were some contacts between the teams. Stephen Baker visited Mike in the US, and they talked a bit about the game. But I don't know how much of that came back to the UK. I don't know if Dave Morris was like so involved with the game as to get some news about that. Not sure about that.
He
It
might have
might
been
be,
on his own a lot.
yeah, or maybe he just thought about making something fun and easy, not too difficult for the book, especially if you think that the book might have been focused at kids around, I don't know, 10 or 12. If you make something that's too difficult, too frustrating, it's not gonna work well with them.
Yeah, they haven't become hardcore gamers yet who will never give up.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's the quest 4 to 8. These are for a group, like in the first two quest packs, and they have to be located in the world or culture of the hero. So the dwarf should be similar to those in Keller's Keep, or you have like the barbarian having something in a cold place and stuff like that. I think this is part of where they get they try to make the packs work well together. They try to put the same things in the pack. Um, this is an interesting part. Please assume that all players are decked out with the best weapons, armors, and artifacts that are found in the basic set. So these are adventures for experienced heroes that are have everything. And also another thing he says, don't forget the awesome powers of players with crossbows. Mike sort of has a thing for crossbows, and as he later suggests, also to put a lot of monsters with crossbows. So he liked those apparently. But of course, it's something that you really have to take care of, because the risk is that the players are so overpowered that a basic number of monsters just can't make it. It wouldn't do it.
That's insightful for why they made these packs so difficult, is because they were imagining people who were, like you say, just completely stocked with weapons, armor, potions, artifacts.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he says that, well, an idea can be that these adventures can run together as a continuing story. It's not necessary, but could be cool, like a story that leads up to the final two quest part. Like in the Wizard pack, this is exactly how it works. The group quests follow the heroes in their quest inside the College of Magic. So I think this is something that really builds up the drama up to the final part. I think this is a very good suggestion to make to the designers. Quest 9 and 10, I want something different here. This should be balanced for the 4 heroes decked out as before. This should be interrelated, so linked together, so that the heroes have to go back and forth from one to complete the other one. We know that this is something that ended up being a feature of the North American packs. We can see clearly in the dwarf, in the barbarian, the elf, the wizard was also supposed to be played like this, and the dwarf as well. I mean, the dwarf not really in the beginning, but in the second revision, yes. So this is also an interesting part, showing how much influence Mike had with his ideas, with the things he wanted to introduce in the game. Then
Lesto
there are
Dante
some
has
things.
a. Oh, I'm sorry. Lesto Dante had a comment there about the Dark Company.
Hmm?
Um, my impression is the Dark Company was from 1992 as well. So I wonder how much contact there would have been between maybe the UK person who was doing that quest and Mike Gray's team. But I suppose they're doing similar things with a multi-board. You clear the board and move to the next one, kind of thing.
Well, I think there are two possible explanations, three probably. There might have still been contacts between the teams, like, oh, we're doing this, what are you doing? Let's see if there is something we can do together. It can be that they were sort of independently created by the two teams. Great minds think alike, they say. And so probably they sort of had something similar coming to their mind. Might also be that was something that was an idea back in the first stages of HeroQuest that never found an outlet in a quest book, and so they both took from the same source. I think these are the three explanations we have. We don't know exactly how much contact there was after the visit from Stephen Baker to the US. Maybe some, maybe not so much. Probably the team working on the European expansion was a team mostly from Games Workshop, but we don't know exactly. Maybe some drafts will surface also from the UK team. It would be very cool. I'm not sure it's gonna happen, but still, maybe we'll see that.
Yeah.
Uh, then there are some things that Mike doesn't like at all. Random teleporters, as in Basic Quest 8. Ugh. He also doesn't like.
Respectfully disagree with you there, Mike. But yeah, I know what
He
people
also
mean.
doesn't like the variable hit points of the ogres. So he tells, don't use that. Like seriously, don't use that.
So you say it's stupid.
It's stupid. Yeah, I guess everyone has his own ideas about the game. He also says something that we know very well. It is easy for a hero to max out and have nothing to buy with the gold he has collected so far. So we know that the players have a lot of gold. We have to find ways for them to spend it and to get some cool stuff. But of course, this means the quests also have to become more difficult. I guess this is part of the reason why we ended up finding ogres with like 10 body points and stuff like that. Uh, School markers that were not used so much.
We're talking about skulls that represent more
Yeah,
than one hit, because the regular skull tiles were a North American thing. So you put a skull tile for each hit the monster's taken. But I suppose if you have a monster with 10 body points or more, it kind of would make sense to have more markers.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
represents two
yeah.
or three or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe they could have come up with something like Advanced Hero Quest was the tiles with a different number of it. We don't know. In the end,
Oh,
uh, it didn't really. No one really put more of those. I think maybe just a few here and there, but no one thought about putting them. And I guess we in Europe sort of work without them, so it was just possible to write it down somewhere. It was not that necessary, I guess.
so they didn't consider
And
putting the small d6 next to a monster, a little dice representing the hit points.
no, apparently not. It was something that they didn't feel like was very necessary. So
Okay.
here the Mikes give some advice about how to deal with the designing of a quest. Be sure to keep some of the a copy of the basic game intact, so you know that you're not using too many pieces of something, because the risk is to put more than the people have, so the
Uh,
quest can't work that way.
Cough, cough, frozen horror, too many doors.
Exactly. Again, do not underestimate the power of the crossbow. You might want to give them some of them to some of your monsters, and so he is very passionate about crossbows.
I agree.
Uh,
Um,
then there are a couple.
oh, this is the part I
Go.
like. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. Then he recognized that there are a couple of issues with the rules so far. So there is a glitch where you can search an empty room for treasure from anywhere in the room. Uh, he tries to suggest ways of dealing with it. He says maybe you can consider writing an amendment to a rule, a specific rule about how things should work. But he gives a couple of ideas that can make searching the treasure a bit more difficult for the players. Also, he suggests that sometimes Zarko doesn't really have anything to do because there are no monsters on the board.
Hmm.
So, an idea is one how the designer suggested, but we don't know who. When a wandering monster appears, a wandering monster appears whenever a hero rolls doubles when he rolls to move.
I
It
like
was a
that.
nice idea.
I think I'm going to steal that idea.
You can, so it's very cool.
Borrow.
This is a good way to make the quest also a bit more challenging to the players. So there were things that they knew were not perfect, but I guess some of them sort of found their way in the packs, but not everything. Of course, when you have to change a rule from the base set, it's sort of difficult to make it fit. So you have to come up with something. And some more questions and answers about the rules. Of course, we can consider these as official as they get. It was the head designer from Hasbro saying this, so if anyone has doubts, this is the truth. You can just take it from there. So, how many treasures can be found in a room? Can monsters move through other monsters? Furniture is an obstacle. Can furniture be moved? Do you have to be close to a hero to pass something to them? Searching traps in a corridor. Can the hero jump in space? Does a hero have to be in a corridor to search for traps? So we have some rules clarification that sometimes the designer themselves asked. Sometimes it was something that Mike knew was broken and had to be fixed somehow.
I've implemented some of those into my own game, not to brag. I like, I don't necessarily agree with everything there, but a lot of those things I've done,
And
like
as
the jumping. You
as
go
I
ahead.
said before, great minds think alike. So it's you just get to the same conclusion as Mike had. Uh, then we have the maps. He's explaining a bit how they work, how they should make them. They don't have to draw the furniture. They can just make it a bit easier for this part of the game. The maps will be designed better later.
Hmm.
You can put some traps, but you have to use some space in the quest book to explain the traps. So that's also an important part. Some ideas about the alchemist shop. So they can create new potions as well. They can decide when the players can buy the potion. Again, there is a lot of freedom for the designers to create something within the limits that Mike placed for the pack. New rules, it's very important as they will eat up a lot of space, and the space is a valuable asset in this case. You can't really use too much of it, so you can put some new things, but not too much. So it's they have freedom, but they don't have a lot of space to explain how the new rules work. And we know that some of the new rules are shared between the packs, so they have even less space to explain how they work, like the multiple attacks.
They weren't given a lot of time to complete this project, were they?
Uh, Think about 3 months starting from scratch. So they were probably given the assignment in August. They had to give EV by November of the same year.
Of course, I have
Uh,
no way of comparing that. I don't know if that was a lot of time back in the day with the game industry or how it is today. I guess I don't know.
well, I think probably for an experienced designer, it's a good amount of time to create something like this. I mean, considering it was maybe their main job.
Hmm.
They could work a lot on it. So I think 3 months was a good time to come up with something, to design something. They
I
still
suppose.
had time to rework a bit at the beginning of December. Then there was a lot of back and forth for the quest to be edited, to be fixed. We don't have clear dates. Let's see, but probably um, between December and March, they had to have the final version ready to be printed off, to be created, by Hasbro. And as it was probably, I think no one knows exactly what the Barbarian and the Elf were probably on sale by September 1992. So everything happened within a year, give or take.
I suppose the real next final treasure for the HeroQuest historians would be to track down some of these designers in a nice way, of course. Don't hassle them to find out, yeah, what was it like working on these, and what would they have done differently. I don't know if
Yeah,
that'll ever happen, but
no, well, in part we did that with Katie and the Elf Pack.
that's true. I've
Uh,
seen on
it's
elvagler.com.
not it's not so easy as for them. It might have been something they worked 30 years before. They just barely remember what they did. So uh, it's very special to us, and we would remember every detail if we did that. But maybe for them it was not. So
Just
uh,
another day
we
at
are
the
sort
office.
of
Yeah.
we are sort of trying to get in touch with more of the designers, but it's not always easy, and it's not sure that they remember exactly what happened back then, or
Mhm.
why maybe some choices were made or not made. So,
Mhm.
uh, oh, here is the thing I was saying after fault number three. Uh, he says Milton Bradley's die cutting accuracy is not very good. So he knew that things were not perfect. So you had to leave a lot of space around the tiles if you want to be sure.
Very honest.
Yeah, I mean that's good. That's good to know. And again, he gives some hints about what they can do to make the creation of the tile sheet as easy as possible with the things they had at home. As of course they were just designers, they didn't have a lot of things to use in this case.
Well, we have some questions here. I don't know if you want to try to answer some of them as we
Sure.
go. So, yeah, we were speculating about the style from Bohemius' comments earlier with the D&D board game. I know Hasbro did eventually buy out Parker Brothers, and Dungeons and Dragons was under TSR, but then it was Wizards of the Coast, and finally Hasbro took it over. But I suppose what you were talking about is the fact that they had contacts within the industry, that they knew other people. So some of these designers, I mean, I know nowadays you get these freelance artists, so it's not necessarily, oh, I work for Hasbro and nobody else. They might work for various companies under contract. So they could have gotten somebody uh, who had formerly worked on D&D, maybe, or
Yeah,
his Bizargon's suggestion was this other miniature company that I've heard of before. Is it Rapenta? What is it called?
yeah.
Let me see if I can find it again. Oh, it was in the other chat.
I'm showing the material the developers received in the
Raul
meantime.
Partha. Raul Partha.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of
Oh, here it is.
talent out there.
Do not use this system.
Do not use the system.
He really didn't like it. So The variable body points for the ogre.
Yeah, yeah,
So
he didn't. Well, and then the whole thing with the extra tiles didn't come out, but they could have used the body point trackers again. I'm
yeah,
almost
yeah,
thinking of doing that myself with some of the new monsters that have so many body points, so many of them. Yeah, some of the other things that were said here, questions. Oh, there's some pictures. Spare parts. Um, his Bizargon was asking about a diagram he made with different stages from a distance. I don't know if you want to share that or not.
yeah. I'm not sure I have it on hand, but it's sort of a timeline we created about the development of the pack for the things we know, like the names and the timeline that we have. I think we want to fix it, make it as accurate as possible. Then we'll probably make a post about it if someone's interested.
Oh, I see. Bohemius is pointing out these D&D miniatures have sort of a similar style to some of the uh, Hero Quest miniatures of 9092 that weren't Games Workshop.
Yeah, it's true. I think some people use these miniatures as well in their HeroQuest game, so they sort of fit well in there. It might be, maybe it's the same sculpture.
Or it could be just people have a style that sort of says this is what fantasy miniatures should look like, and people copy each other. Maybe because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
easier to get out of the molds or something, or to paint. These are designed to fit the square size. Oh, Nameless comments, it's like the Avengers assembling. You bring the four quest packs together. Well, I think from a marketing standpoint, definitely. But I'm just imagining, let's say you're going to play the Barbarian quest pack last, and you've powered up the wizard, the elf, and the dwarf, and so you have these really strong. Those heroes are really strong, but then the Barbarian is kind of lagging behind. But then you play his quest pack, and he gets to level up with the rest of them. It'd be kind of interesting, like if you did it that way. Or would you play all the solo quests first, then bring the Avengers together for their big adventure? It's up to the player, I guess.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, we know that Zargon is the master of the game, so he can also decide then or ask the player to do something, and they're
Yeah,
sort of forced to do that anyway.
yeah. Until it's their turn.
Uh, but who knows? Maybe there would have been something more after this pack, so maybe there was a later stage Avenger like quest that would have awaited players after that. We
Hmm.
don't know. Yeah.
That yeah.
Uh,
So they planned. I think you said this maybe, unless I was imagining it in the previous interview, that Mike Gray and his team, the plan was not just to make these four packs and then stop, like HeroQuest was over.
yeah.
Like they were going to keep making even more things after this.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up where I saw it, but he says like there might be more in the future
Oh.
if this works. So
The
this is just the beginning.
just the beginning. Yeah. The key to reading these drafts is to if you find something you like, snapshot it, note the page
Yeah,
right away. Because I remember I was talking to some of you guys behind the scenes, and I had thought I had read somewhere about how multiple attacks worked, and I didn't write it down. So I spent months doubting whether I'd really read that or if that was just wishful thinking, about stacking the
no,
attacks together. And then finally somebody found it and said, "Yeah, it really he really did say that."
I'm sure I read it somewhere. It's just I can't find it, but
Yeah.
still. Back when they started, the idea was that there might be more coming. We've been told that HeroQuest was like selling well, and it's also interesting that we went from uh, designing 4 packs to not being able to release two in a year. So it means something changed quite abruptly. But the idea in 1991 was probably that HeroQuest was going to last for a long time. It would have a lot of stuff developed for if these 4 expansions did sell well. We don't know exactly what happened. That same person that like is familiar with the whole thing said that probably the margin was too low on HeroQuest. It was selling well, but making a box of HeroQuest is very expensive for the company compared to what I don't know, like a deck of Uno cards can cost you, and so
Hmm.
on a deck of Uno cards, you have like 8 times the margin you have 8 times the margin of the cost. Probably HeroQuest is just like 2 or 3 or 4 times that. It also takes up a lot of shelf space, so that's probably another part of. As he said, Milton Bradley probably felt it was just easier to sell a million boxes of something cheaper rather than 100,000 boxes of HeroQuest, even if maybe 100,000 boxes is a very good number for a game. So it was selling well. It was probably just not a high enough margin for the company to just keep working on it. We don't know exactly, but I think it's a possible reason. It's likely something like this happened. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm as Lesto Dante is commenting, HeroQuest itself lasted far beyond Milton Bradley's support for it. I mean, you had magazines coming out with quests. I remember the Inn of Chaos was a famous one. That was 1996. You had fans, of course, online, and the internet was fairly new, but a lot of people were getting involved and keeping it alive long after uh, the boxes could no longer be found at regular stores anymore. But yes, it sounds like they did definitely plan for longer. So I hope that with modern HeroQuest, of course, that they've learned lessons and things are a bit different now than they were back then, but that they can keep it going.
yeah,
Um, but that whole comment about product margin versus profit margin, again, not being part of that industry, I never would have considered such things. I never would have thought about the fact that yes, if you're putting these big expensive boxes on the shelf, it's easier to have smaller games.
yeah. So I think it's a bit sad in the end that we didn't get as much HeroQuest as we could have, but still, there's not much we could do about that. Uh, if it's any help, at least it was not because it was not selling well. So we were supporting the game, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine initially something selling well. Well, why doesn't it just keep selling? But yeah, you're right. There's other things behind the scenes, and I want to say again there was it was funny reading the drafts because there were like little jokes in the margins, and one of them was kind of along those lines, kind of a little cynical remark about how it's going to be easier for them to sell Crocodile Dentist and you know, HeroQuest may go away. And I don't know if they knew that or if it just we're looking back in hindsight thinking, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah,
The fans didn't give up on HeroQuest, Hasbro did, and they had their reasons.
yeah. I know. I guess it's what happens in the end. So sometimes it's still going strong, but then it doesn't work out.
Oh, his bizarre
Can't do
gun
much
is
about that.
his bizarre gun is good. He has a good comment here reminding us that the Stephen Baker interview that was fairly recent, that's basically what Stephen Baker was saying is his thought was, yeah, the stores you get so many expansions for HeroQuest, you have to take up an entire shelf and you have to keep stocking them. So you as a store owner have to consider is this better than having a variety of games that you can sell from different. Uh, different products that appeal to different people.
Yeah, also like the basic game takes up a lot of space. I think this is part of the reason why we are seeing First Light
Small
releasing
box.
as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so we might see First Light next to the expansions rather than the big, huge game system,
yeah,
which they shrunk that size of that box down, but still it's fairly big. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and if they required the store to stock all of our products, like you have to have the game, at least the game system, and then whatever expansions, that limits you a bit. I know people are always telling me, hey, it's not about that. It's about, you buy stuff online, so there's no limit. But yeah, a lot of people still look for their games in stores apparently, and so that's a very important part of reaching more people. People aren't necessarily going online looking for games to play. They're just looking for through store shelves, and if they see it, that's a great way to get them. But then, yeah, if it's not there or they don't know what extent it is, like if I don't know the expansions exist, I'm not going to buy them, right? I have to know they exist. Somehow that has to
yeah.
get my attention. So it's a strategy they have to put forward to market it.
Or you can put a cross-sell flyer in there so that you can just see what's
Yes,
there and you can buy it online. So that's also a
true.
good idea.
Put a QR code. Yeah, I'm surprised they don't have something in I suppose the companion app shows you the quests that are available, but they could have a little just commercial that pops up and says, by the way, if you liked this, there's more on the way, and here's an example. Of course, you have to update the app and everything to get that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's time for a Hero Quest commercial to come back so that they could do that and show
Yep.
that on television. It will be cool.
Yep. I really enjoyed the, I don't know what you'd call them, animated comic kind of
Yeah.
presentations they had with Stephen Baker narrating. That was kind of the first thing that Chris Nato shared with us. He was going by the name Encarmine. I think he still does, but he was saying, "Oh yes, I was there when they wrote it." It's like, wait a minute, how would he be there? Oh, he must be somebody from the company. And he explained it, and yeah, I really enjoyed those. Those were on YouTube. They still are. But yeah, if they
Yeah.
did a maybe a big budget commercial, maybe a nostalgic commercial similar to the old one from 1989 with somebody dressed up like a goblin or a barbarian, and that could be really fun. I had all these
Yeah.
dreams about the Japanese Hero Quest coming back and having just a really over the top theatrical commercial of like people running through the streets dressed as warriors and stuff. That would be anyway. I would love to see
We,
something
we
like that. Viral,
we should probably do it if no one does that. So
yeah, a fan made thing. Showing an abomination. Oh yeah, like the fish monster with the trident. That would be really elaborate and interesting. Yeah. Well, I feel like we've kind of gotten to the end, and I think both of our voices are starting to give out. So, what are some kind of closing thoughts that you want to give for this one? And maybe we could snag you for a future third interview on this if you are feeling up to it.
oh yeah, there's still a lot of stuff to show. I don't know. Well, I think as someone who's interested a bit in the history of the game, Finding Drafts was like amazing as it really gave us an insight on how things worked and um, what happened back then, and I think it also gives us some ideas on like what you should do if you want to design a pack as well or a quest as well. It gives a lot of ideas you can use. Then again, I don't know. Do we have any other questions? Maybe it's a bit easier this way.
Yeah, I'll just throw it out to our, especially our live audience there um, in the Discord. We've got Bohemius, Hispazargon. Do you guys have anything you want to ask, Luca?
Not from my side.
Well, he knows everything already, so he doesn't
Because
have
he
to
knows
ask.
everything. Yeah.
He knows it all.
Come on, Bohemios, do you have
Now,
any question?
Well, I'm following. So, I mean, we answer practically all the questions. I really don't know what to ask. It's um, it's a beautiful work. I wish I could have been part of it actually, but I don't know in which part.
There's still
But
time
if
to
you need
find out.
help for the if you need help for the dwarf, this one is yeah, yes, it's at the end. No, we're we're going to get this one soon. I hope, because I see that what you're missing. Yeah, tell us what is missing. Why you didn't publish yet? What is the perfectionist part that you want to add to this pack?
Well, for sure. No, right now it's more about playtesting. Really, we are sort of done, I think, with the pack. I think the biggest issues, maybe not surprisingly, were the same. The Mike told to the designers, so it was sculpting the miniatures, and that took a very long time. It was very difficult to find someone who could do it and could do it at in the right way with the right style. And the art was also another difficult part to deal with, as we are perfectionists but not artists, so it was hard to find someone that could keep up. We were lucky to find them, and I'll just use this space also to thank them, as we had two members of the Italian HeroQuest forum, Akon and Capuleius, who helped with the tiles. So they made some amazing art,
Nice work, guys.
and yes, and they also did it for free, and this just shows how much passion everyone in the project has. And also for the miniatures, the fun part is that actually uh, um, the main sculpts were made by also an Italian artist, and so it's interesting that in the end, this Wizard Quest pack is made in Italy, mostly made in Italy, and you know how much quality that means in the world. And his name is Fabelzel. If you go and look for his name, you can find some amazing cows, dwarves, sculpts he made just in the original Games Workshop style. And so you can guess that the job he made was amazing. We received some help also from a couple more people. Of course, we'll just thank all of them. We'll just go out with all the names once we have the pack ready. But also like James Boykin of Monster Encounters helped us with the with some of the sculpts. So we really had some really good help. But still, it's a time-consuming process. So if there is some artist can sculpt the miniatures in the right way, he can just drop us a line. That will be amazing and will surely help in developing the Dwarf Quest pack a bit faster.
Well, you have so much experience now completing the Wizard pack. So, do we have a release date in mind?
For the Wizard or the Dwarf?
Either one, both.
No, I guess the Wizard Quest pack, if everything goes well, again, we have to see. We are making the final fixes after the playtesting. I think it's not impossible to have a release candidate of sorts ready for the end of 2024 or the very beginning of 2025. So I think
In time for Christmas.
something that is just maybe not in time for Christmas, but not very much after that.
Well, the fact that you don't have to sell it, I guess, is when companies miss their targets, it's a big deal. What we
Yeah,
we've been through.
we don't have such problems. So,
Yeah, yeah.
or we can see if there's some holiday somewhere during the months where we are ready with release. So maybe it's Chinese New Year or something like that. We can see. And the dwarf pack is something that we still have to start working on. I thought that the experience of the Wizard Quest pack would really help us in
Mhm.
knowing how to deal with things, how to design some things. And I also thought that it didn't really make sense to work on both, as we didn't have a lot of resources, and to split them would have meant to make it even longer. So I thought it was easier to just finish the wizard and then move on to the dwarf. I think knowing some people who can help with playtesting right away can be a good way to see if something's wrong from the beginning. I think we already know the artists that can do something the way we like. So I think it might move a bit faster compared to the Wizard Quest pack. Even if, on the other hand, there are more gaps to fill. So we have to see if the creative four can move fast enough or not. We'll see. On this, I'm not gonna put any number on it. We'll also have to see if the Wizard Quest pack is appreciated or not, as again, it will be a very expensive effort, and so we have to see if no one likes it, or if everyone thinks it's awful, then maybe we'll just save the money, we'll just release the drafts and see if someone can make it better. I don't know.
There you
We'll
go.
see.
Like the producers. No, just kidding. Sikashem has a
Yeah,
nice
but
question there, but
yeah,
go ahead,
first
Beans.
Sikasem, then I will ask some.
Sign Bohemius up. He'll help you get it done faster, I think. So Sikashem asks, is there, well, you should have been here earlier, but I appreciate your question. Is there going to be a community print at cost offering of a physical version, or is it going to be entirely print and play? He asks.
I mean, it will be print and play, that's for sure. Of course, we're still deciding on how to deal with it exactly, as not everyone has a 3D printer at home, and so they'll have to find a way to get what they want. We don't know yet. If someone might be interested in a print of that kind, he can drop me or us a message, and if we have some news, we'll just get in touch. Of course, I, for one, would like to have a physical copy made in a certain way. It doesn't cost me anything to add more copies to that. We still have some copies to give as gifts to the people who work with us for free. We feel like the bare minimum is to receive the final product of their effort. So if we are able to do something like that at cost, why not? Again, the idea is not to do that in general, is not to profit off of that, but if it's just uh, covering the cost of printing and shipping, we might consider that. I don't know, just drop us a message, we'll see in the future in case if that's possible. Otherwise, we'll try to at least give hints about how to print it properly for those who can't or don't want to, or if we end up not making a print.
And he goes on to say, sorry, Bohemius, one more question here. So he says, perhaps since you'll own the sculpts of the minis, you could offer a retailer license for sellers like Minis 3D or Hero Shop 3D.
This is another of the options. We thought that maybe we could also do something like this, like sort of make a deal so that there is a fair price and they can print it. I don't know. It goes a bit against the idea of them being available for free, but again, we have to consider not everyone has a 3D printer, so I don't know. We're still thinking about that.
Yeah, because I was thinking like, and not to single them out as the only place in town, there's other places too, but Board Games Maker is a site that does prototyping of, you make your own game. you could download the STL files from any site and just send it to them and have them print it. Now, it's true if somebody gets it in their head that they're going to mass produce it and sell it for profit, they're going to ask you, do you own the copyright to this? And shut you down if you don't. But if you just wanted to print out your own set, and just because you don't have a printer at home doesn't mean you couldn't do that. They might charge you a
Yeah,
lot for it because it's being printed
yeah,
overseas and mailed to you.
especially if you want to do it in a certain way, like we'd like to have the tile sheet with the cutouts, but that means that you have to pay for a die that makes the cuts, but the die itself costs a few $100. So of course, if it's just for one copy, it ends up being super expensive. If it's for more copies, the cost is not so much. Or we are trying to make injection molds for the miniatures.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So we might have some sort of minimum number to make, and so we may have some sprues left, but we don't know yet if that's possible. It's very expensive to do injection molding. It's a bit cheaper these days, as you can use silicone molds, not necessarily metal molds. But it's probably not cheap. So based on the price, if maybe there is someone who's interested in having them as well, we might decide to do something like this, but it's still in the making. Dante was taking care of this. He was telling us how the process would be. Like the STL file gets printed in resin, but it's a very expensive resin that gives very, very good details on the print. Then from there, I think a metal copy of the miniature is made, and from the metal copy of the miniature, a mold is made, and from the mold, another mold, but of metal or silicone is made. Then you can use it to make injection printing. So it's a very difficult process
Yeah.
and ends up being, of course, expensive as every very particular process. And so I don't know. We'll see if it ends up being like $500 for a print. Then it doesn't really make sense. If
No.
maybe it's something that can be done.
You guys can do it the way you want, but I want my miniatures in polished bronze. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
We can see if it's possible. It's gonna be cool. I mean,
I usually go with the cheapest possible. I mean, if you think about back in the day, maybe it would have cost you $15 for one of these expansions in 1990s money, USD, and then today it's like $45. But yeah, if you're spending hundreds of dollars, and again, I see it as the temptation there is someone makes it for it's this they sacrifice for this very expensive thing, and then they're like, I need to get that money back, so they're going to want to charge people more, and then it risks creating that sort of limited access, even if you own the rights to it, and Hasbro is not going to come breathing down your neck about it. So, yeah.
exactly. We have to find a sort of balance between making it available for everyone, but like really make it available for everyone. Not that one has to look for some outlets to get the things he needs to play. So of course, most people will probably want to have a nice copy, a nice version of the pack, and maybe they won't be happy with print at home. And so we'll have to see. We don't know yet. We'll see if something can be done. We'll try to do it. Otherwise, we'll just find some other solution, or we'll give the instructions for people to have it made
Or
in the best way possible on their own.
you could do what I do, just go through the Reaper Miniatures catalog and just look for characters that look similar to what you want, and then buy those. Of course, that may run you
Yeah,
a few hundred at the end anyway.
the good thing is that they are generic monsters, so you can usually find them also in pretty much any kind of range. So a minotaur or a giant spider, they're just kind of easy to find. So
Okay.
that's a good part.
All right, Bohemius, you've been so patient. Go ahead with your question. It's finally.
I don't know. Mine was more a joke than rather than
Oh,
a
ask it
question.
anyway. Ask it anyway.
No, I mean to give an authentic experience of the game, why bother with the playtesting?
Oh man.
It, that's very mean for the designers, but
Yeah,
no,
yes, yes, it was a joke.
Yeah.
actually, Katie told me that there was probably not much playtesting done. Also, uh, as far as we know, the packs were not playtested a lot, but we feel like that takes away the fun from the experience. So we want to try and make it as balanced as possible, as fun as possible for the people. And so if you just go into a room and zap the final boss in one turn, is not fun. If you go into a room with 15 monsters that just butcher you, that's not fun. We want to make in this. We don't want to make an original HeroQuest experience. We want to make it a bit better. So this is not
Mhm.
frustrating. It's just something that's more interesting. So
Yeah. It's like Doug was saying, Doug Hopkins, about with their HeroQuest product, they know that fans will get it in their hands and just write whatever they want and turn it into something else, but they still want to present a coherent, balanced, fun package that you can play right out of the box. And it sounds like that's what you're trying to do. And the original designers were trying to do that too. It's just that for whatever reason, yeah, they didn't have. It's nice to hear. I guess I'd missed that detail that she actually admitted that's what had happened. So we have some confirmation of our theory that they didn't do the playtesting that they maybe could have or should have or wanted to.
yeah, as far as I know, she was running the quest with her husband,
Hmm.
and while the kids were sleeping. This is also, I mean, interesting to think about
Yeah, yeah.
how it came to be. And so they did play the quests, but of course, after that, a lot of changes have been made to the quest maps, to the stats of the monsters, to the rules. And after that, I think not a lot of playtesting has been done, especially because it was maybe like single people inside the team. So for a single person, it's quite hard to playtest the whole pack. So probably they just did some pieces, but not everything. I think probably one round of playtesting or two of the Barbarian pack would have showed that, okay, you can't escape a Yeti hug, so there's something wrong here. They probably just didn't even play that once or just some parts of it.
Mhm. You have an
They were
advantage.
lucky to kill the Yeti right away, and so didn't get any hug.
Yeah, you have the advantage of all this time going by and the fact that you don't have a strict deadline, whereas they didn't have that luxury.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had to do it. They had to do it at a certain time, or it meant that the whole work was just gonna be wasted. So of course, it's a different situation.
Mhm.
So it's sort of good that we had 30 years to work on this. So we just have plenty of
Hurry
time.
up, will you?
Uh,
Uh,
the,
I,
the
I
dwarf
just
pack will be released in 2054. So just have some time to wait. But
Now we're joking. Go ahead, Hespazargan.
Yeah, just to comment something about and try to answer Bohemius a little bit more. Kurgan and Luca are right about the why play testing should be needed, but I think also for this quest pack is especially something requested because imagine the wizard is the weakest hero we have in the game. So imagine how difficult could be for a wizard playing the first three solo quests. So we were quite interested in trying to ensure the difficulty was affordable, and Single Wizard was able to success on those, especially on those solo quests, and also in the rest of the pack. So we have been quite concerned about it and quite worried. We try to keep it as better as possible.
Yep.
Yes, and I guess anyway in future AI is going to be a major help for this kind of situation.
Ah,
You can play test like 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times with AI, and it will give you a feedback.
We hope to finish the pack before AI gets so smart, but we'll see
Yeah,
if it
get that
happens or
kind of
not.
control. We are doomed anyway.
yeah. The AI will be
We need
playing
the
the game and
physical
enjoying
copy
it
for the
while we bring
apocalypse.
them coffee and popcorn. Yep. Well, on that note,
Yeah. When,
go
sorry,
ahead. Go
when
ahead.
the AI take over,
You
when
finish.
the AI take over, okay, we're going to be the most loved because we have all this board game to play, and everybody's coming to in our lair to play with us.
Yep. Well, I want to thank Luca Paschi for the interview, and once again, we went over time. Sorry about that, everybody, but I think we definitely have room for a third interview sometime with you. How can
Most
people,
likely, yeah.
if people want to get in touch with you about these projects, what's the best way?
Oh, well, I think I am pretty much in every social media HeroQuest related, so they can drop me a message on Discord, they can drop me a message on Reddit, they can send a message on Yeoldin. They just have to decide which outlet would work best for them, and we'll take it from there. If there is something I can answer right away, I'm just gonna do that. Otherwise, we'll see.
You're going to get a deluge of people asking for stuff, but I hope you ready.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think probably a few people would be interested in this, but maybe not as much as someone would think about. So I think maybe, I don't know, a couple hundreds, but I don't think more than that. But we'll see.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you once again. We're going to go ahead and stop the stream, and then we'll restart it. And when we come back, we're going to be playing A Plague of Zombies on HeroQuest Family.
You're, you're welcome and have a nice game.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks so much. And good luck with the project.
Thanks.
All right. Bye bye. See you all soon.
Bye.